The metal pod crashed into the thick trees of an Oregon forest, sending up a cloud of dust and pine needles. Emily stumbled out, her silver suit glowing faintly under the moonlight. She was not human, but her mission required her to act like one. Her people, the Zintrans, had sent her to study Earth's irrational creatures, humans. They called emotions a biological flaw, but Emily was curious. Her pod's hologram projector hummed to life, wrapping her in a disguise. A human form with pale skin, dark hair, and wide, curious eyes. She adjusted her clothes, mimicking the style from old Earth movies she'd studied. The forest felt strange, alive with sounds, rustling leaves, distant animal calls, the whisper of wind. Zintra was silent, sterile. This chaos was fascinating. By dawn, Emily reached a small town called Pine Hollow. She watched from the shadows as humans laughed, argued, and hurried past. A sign caught her eye. Jake's Cafe. Homemade cookies. Her database labeled cookies as a sugary snack, but Zintran food was bland, nutrient-rich paste. Intrigued, she stepped inside. The cafe smelled warm, like cinnamon and butter. Behind the counter stood a man in a flour-dusted apron. His name tag read Jake. He had a lazy smile and a scar on his thumb. "New in town?" he asked, wiping his hands. Emily hesitated. "Yes, I need to observe human customs." Jake chuckled. "Well, welcome to Pine Hollow. First time in a cafe." She nodded. "Here." He slid a chocolate chip cookie across the counter. On the house. Emily stared at it. The edges were golden, the center soft. She picked it up, her fingers trembling slightly. Humans used food for pleasure. It seemed inefficient. "Try it," Jake urged. She took a bite. Heat flooded her mouth. Sweet, rich, alive. Her hologram flickered as her true form reacted, her alien skin rippling with bioluminescent patterns. She froze. Had he noticed? Jake was squinting at her. "You okay? You look feverish." "A malfunction," she said quickly. "Thank you. I must go." She fled, but the taste lingered. That night, in her damaged pod, Emily ran diagnostics. The cookie's compounds had triggered a reaction in her nervous system, awakening receptors her species had phased out centuries ago. Her report to Zintra mentioned unusual biochemistry, but she left out the truth. For the first time in her life, she felt awake. The next morning, she returned to Jake's Cafe. Emily returned to Jake's Cafe the next morning. She told herself it was for research, how humans bonded over food, how they smiled for no reason. But the truth was simpler. She craved the cookie's warmth. Jake waved when she entered. "Back again. What'll it be today?" "Another chocolate chip," she said, sitting at the same corner table. He slid the cookie onto a napkin. "You're a woman of routine, huh?" Emily tilted her head. "Routine. Never mind." He grinned. "Enjoy." She took a bite, slower this time. The flavors exploded again. Sweetness, a hint of salt, the melt of chocolate. Her skin prickled, glowing faintly blue under her hologram. She hid her hands under the table, hoping Jake wouldn't notice. Over the next week, Emily came every day. Jake began experimenting. "Try this," he'd say, offering oatmeal raisin, peanut butter, snickerdoodle. Each bite made her lightheaded, her alien biology reacting in ways she didn't understand. Once, a peppermint brownie made her laugh uncontrollably. Jake laughed too, though he didn't know why. One afternoon, her communicator beeped. A hologram of her commander, Vera, appeared. "Emily. Report." Emily stepped into the cafe's alley, heart racing. "I'm gathering data on human social rituals. There, food is central to interaction." Vera's voice was cold. "You've mentioned food excessively. Zintrans do not indulge in sensory distractions. Focus on their weaknesses, aggression, illogical bonds." Emily glanced through the cafe window. Jake was wiping counters, humming off-key. Understood. But that night, she smuggled a cookie to her pod. She scanned it, baffled. Earth's air, combined with the sugar and Jake's touch, was altering her chemistry. Her people would call it a flaw. To Emily, it felt like waking up. The next day, Jake leaned on her table. "You're not from around here, are you?" Emily froze. "Why?" "You stare at things like you're seeing them for the first time. And you never take off your jacket." "I'm cold." He smirked. "It's 80 degrees out." She hesitated. "I'm different." "I guessed." He sat down, serious now. "You're safe here, okay? Pine Hollow's good at secrets." Emily's hologram flickered again, this time, not from arousal, but relief. She bought 2 cookies that day. Emily couldn't stay away. Every morning, she walked to Jake's cafe, her steps quickening as the scent of baking dough grew stronger. Jake began saving a cookie for her, a new flavor each day. "For my most loyal customer," he'd say, sliding it across the counter. One Tuesday, he handed her a lemon shortbread. "Tart, different. Try it." She bit in. The tang made her gasp, then sigh. Her skin shimmered faintly, the hologram struggling to hide her alien glow. "This is intense." Jake frowned. "You're sweating. You sure you're okay?" Emily nodded. The cookies weren't just food. They were unlocking something in her. Colors seemed brighter, sounds sharper. When Jake brushed her hand passing change, her whole body hummed. Zintrin's didn't blush, but her human disguise did. At night, in her pod, Emily scanned her body. Her cells were changing. The sugars, spices, and Earth's oxygen were rewriting her DNA. She felt more alive in a way her people had forgotten. Her communicator buzzed again. Vera's hologram glared. "Your reports are insufficient. Why do you waste time on snacks?" Emily straightened. Snacks are a key human ritual. They trigger emotions like joy and nostalgia. Emotions are irrelevant. Focus on their aggression, their wars. But joy is a weakness too, Emily argued. They prioritize pleasure over logic. Vera paused. "Interesting. Analyze it, but do not participate." Emily hesitated. "Understood." The next day, Jake handed her a cinnamon roll. "You look tired. Eat this." She took a bite, and warmth flooded her. Her disguise flickered. Blue veins pulsed under her skin. Jake's eyes widened, but he said nothing. That night, Emily broke protocol. She baked a cookie using Zintrin tech, mixing Earth ingredients with her ship's energy crystals. The result glowed faintly. She ate it, and the surge of power nearly knocked her over. Her mind raced. What if humans could feel this? But when she offered Jake a piece, he shook his head. "Keep your weird space cookies. I like mine normal." Emily smiled. "Normal is boring." Jake studied her. "You're not normal, are you?" She froze. "What do you mean?" He shrugged. "You're just different, in a good way." Emily left the cafe that night clutching a bag of cookies, her mind spinning. Vera's warnings echoed, but so did Jake's kindness. She was changing, inside and out, and she didn't want it to stop. Emily's communicator buzzed sharply. She ignored it, staring at the half-eaten oatmeal cookie on her cafe table. Jake's voice cut through her thoughts. "You've been quiet today. Everything okay?" She forced a smile. "Fine. Just tired." The communicator buzzed again. This time, she answered. Vera's hologram flickered above the device, her expression stern. "Emily, you've ignored 3 check-ins. Explain." "I'm busy," Emily said, lowering her voice. "Studying human rituals takes time." Vera's eyes narrowed. "Your last report mentioned cookies 6 times. You're obsessing over trivialities. Focus on their violence, their illogical alliances." Emily gripped the edge of the table. "Their trivialities are what bind them. They find joy in small things. It's not weakness, it's strength." Vera's tone turned icy. You're compromised. Return to the pod for recalibration. No. The word slipped out before Emily could stop it. Jake glanced up, surprised. Emily stood abruptly. I need to go. She hurried to her pod, heart pounding. Inside, she pulled up Zintran databases, searching for answers. Why did cookies affect her so deeply? Scans revealed the truth. Earth's air, mixed with sugar and human interaction, was rewiring her brain. Her people had erased such receptors long ago, calling them inefficient, but Emily felt more alive than ever. The next morning, she returned to the cafe. Jake handed her a bag. Packed extras for you. Figured you needed them. Emily hesitated. Why are you kind to me? He shrugged. You're the only person in town who doesn't gossip. Plus, you eat cookies like they're going extinct. She almost laughed. But when she bit into a peanut butter cookie, her disguise failed completely. Her skin rippled blue, glowing like a star. Jake dropped a coffee mug. It shattered. Emily froze. You saw. Yeah. He stared, pale. You're not human. Silence hung between them. Emily braced for panic, rejection. Instead, Jake knelt to clean the mess, his voice steady. So, alien, huh? Explains the weird glow. You gonna destroy the planet? No. Emily's hologram stabilized. I'm a scientist. I mean no harm. Jake stood, wiping his hands. Good. Now eat your cookie before it gets stale. Relief flooded her. Thank you. Just don't beam me up, okay? He grinned weakly. That night, Emily smuggled cookies into her pod, hiding them in a compartment lined with Zintran tech. Her communicator buzzed again. Vera's message glowed. Return or face exile. Emily deleted it. She wasn't ready to leave. Not yet. Jake closed the cafe door, flipping the open sign to closed. Stay for a bit, he asked Emily. I want to try a new recipe. She hesitated. Your people value privacy. I shouldn't intrude. He snorted. Since when do you care about should? Come on. In the kitchen, Jake handed her a mixing bowl. Ever baked? Emily shook her head. Zintrans eat nutrient paste. Efficiency over enjoyment. Jake grinned. Well, welcome to Earth's chaos. He guided her hands, shaping dough. Like this. Gentle. Emily focused, but her skin tingled where Jake touched her. Why are you teaching me? Why not? He paused. You're lonely, right? Like me. She stiffened. Loneliness is illogical. My people abolished it. Abolished or just buried it? He poured chocolate chips into the dough. My ex left because I hid my feelings. Maybe your people are hiding too. Emily's hologram flickered. Feelings are messy. Yeah. He smiled. But they're real. They baked in silence. When the cookies emerged, golden and fragrant, Emily took a bite. Her disguise failed again. Blue light pulsed under her skin. Jake watched, fascinated. You're beautiful, he said softly. She blushed, a human reaction she couldn't control. I'm a freak. No. He touched her hand. You're brave. You're learning to feel. That's rare. Emily looked away. Zintra will exile me if I stay. Then stay. It's not simple, isn't it? He leaned closer. You're not them. You're you. Their faces were inches apart. Emily's breath quickened. Her body hummed, not from cookies, but from something deeper. Jake hesitated, then pulled back. Sorry. Too fast. She shook her head. No. It's new, but not bad. They ate cookies in quiet understanding. For the first time, Emily let her disguise drop completely. Her true form glowed, alien and radiant. Jake didn't flinch. So, he said, what's next? Emily smiled. I don't know, but I want to find out. Emily spent nights in her pod, scanning cookie crumbs with Zintran tools. Why do they affect me? she muttered, staring at the data. The answer glowed on the screen. Earth's oxygen, combined with sugar and human touch, had altered her DNA. She was becoming something new, part alien, part human. Jake found her at dawn, asleep at the pod's controls. "Emily," he whispered, shaking her shoulder. She woke with a start. "You shouldn't be here. It's dangerous." "Dangerous is my middle name." He held up a bag, brought breakfast, and answers. Inside were old photos of his ex-wife, letters she'd left. "She said I was cold," he said, "too focused on work. But you feel too much. Maybe we balance each other." Emily's throat tightened. Zintra sent a warning. "They're sending someone to take me back." "Then let's fight." "We can't. They're advanced. So are you." Jake tapped the cookie scanner. "Use their tech. Turn cookies into a weapon." Emily blinked. "A weapon? Yeah, you said they changed you. Maybe they can change them." That night, Emily baked. She mixed chocolate chips with Zintron energy crystals, creating a glowing batter. The oven hummed, and the result was a cookie that pulsed faintly. She took a bite, and power surged through her, stronger than before. The next day, a shadow fell over Pine Hollow. A sleek black ship descended, sending trees crashing. Kale, a Zintron enforcer, emerged. His eyes glowed red. "Emily, you've betrayed us." Jake stepped forward. "She's done nothing wrong." Kale sneered. "Primitive. You cling to emotions like children." He fired a beam at Emily. "Look out." Jake shoved her aside, taking the blast. He collapsed, clutching his arm. Emily's disguise dropped. She glowed fiercely, alien and radiant. "Leave him alone." Kale laughed. "You're weak." A disgrace. Emily grabbed a glowing cookie. "Try me." Emily threw the glowing cookie at Kale. It hit his weapon, dissolving it in a burst of light. Kale stumbled back, shocked. "Impossible. You're primitive." "Wrong," Emily said, her voice steady. "I'm more." She grabbed Jake's good arm and dragged him toward the cafe. "Get inside." Kale roared, firing energy blasts. Emily spun, hurling another cookie. It exploded, creating a barrier of light. "Run." They fled as Cal's ship fired on the pod, reducing it to ashes. Emily's hands shook, not from fear, but rage. Her people had tried to erase her. But she wasn't Zintron anymore. In the cafe, Jake slumped against a table, bleeding. Emily knelt, her hands glowing blue. "This will hurt," she warned, pressing them to his wound. He gritted his teeth. "Do it." Energy surged. Jake gasped as his skin knit together, the scar vanishing. Emily pulled back, exhausted. "Your turn to rest." "Not yet." He stood, shaky but determined. "We need to warn the town." Outside, Pine Hollow's residents stared at the smoking crater where the pod had been. Cal's ship hovered, taunting. Emily stepped forward. "He'll leave, or I'll stop him." A voice crackled from the ship. "This isn't over, traitor." It vanished into the sky. The townspeople gathered, murmuring. A child pointed at Emily's glowing hands. "Are you an angel?" "No," Emily said. "Just different." Jake squeezed her shoulder. "Different is good." That night, they sat on the cafe roof, watching stars. "They'll come back," Emily said. "Let them." Jake handed her a cookie. "We've got this." Emily smiled. "We? You're staying, right? Pine Hollow's your home now." She leaned into him, her glow softening. "Yes." Morning sunlight streamed into the cafe. Emily sat across from Jake, her hands clasped tightly. "I need to tell you the truth," she said. Jake sipped his coffee. "About the glowing, the spaceship, the cookies that melt weapons." She blinked. "You knew." "I guessed. You're not exactly subtle." He set his mug down. "But I want to hear it from you." Emily took a deep breath. "I'm from Zintra. My people sent me to study humans. They think emotions are flaws. But you made me feel alive. Jake nodded. And the cookies. They rewired me. My DNA. I'm not fully Zentran anymore. He leaned forward. So what now? The council will demand I return. If I refuse, I'm exiled. Forever. Jake grinned. Sounds like a win-win. You get to stay here, eat cookies, annoy me daily. Emily's eyes filled. You're not afraid. Should I be? I could be dangerous. You saved my life. That's good enough for me. Relief washed over her. Thank you. Now, Jake stood. Let's rebuild your pod. Can't have you floating around without a ride. They scavenged parts from the wreckage. Zentran tech mixed with earth metal. Jake hammered. Emily welded with alien energy. Days turned into weeks. The townspeople brought supplies, curious but kind. When the new pod was ready, Emily received a final message from Zintra. Choose. Return and forget this chaos, or stay and lose your identity. She deleted the message. Jake tossed her a wrench. Ready for the grand opening. Our bakery. Yep. Stardust Sweets. Combining your tech with my recipes. Emily smiled. I like it. As they hung the sign, a child peeked in. Are you really an alien? Emily knelt, glowing softly. Yes, but I'm learning to be human. The child grinned. Cool. Jake wrapped an arm around Emily. Home is where the cookies are, he said. A hologram flickered above Emily's rebuilt pod. 3 Zentran elders, their forms shimmering with cold light. Emily of Zintra, one intoned. You have violated our laws. Choose. Return and reclaim your rank, or remain exiled among primitives. Jake stood beside her, silent but unflinching. Emily stared at the elders. If I stay, I lose my identity. Correct, the elder said. You will be erased from our records. Forgotten. Emily glanced at Jake. He shrugged. Better to be remembered here. She turned back. I choose Earth. The elders' faces twisted with disdain. You embrace weakness. I embrace life. The hologram vanished. Emily swayed, her body glowing brighter than ever. Jake steadied her. What's happening? My DNA, she gasped. It's stabilizing. Over days, her alien features faded. Her skin softened. Her glow dimmed to a warm, human tone. Only her eyes remained, a faint starlight blue. I'm still me, she whispered, but different. Jake grinned. Different is perfect. They opened Stardust Sweets the next week. Emily's Zentran tech enhanced the ovens, creating cookies that sparkled faintly, addictive in flavor. Locals joked the bakery was magic. Children giggled when Emily let them stir glowing batter. One afternoon, a social worker arrived. We have a girl, Lily. Her parents died in a crash. She's unusual. Glows in the dark. Emily and Jake exchanged looks. Emily knelt before Lily. You're special, she said. Like me. Lily smiled. Can I stay? Jake ruffled her hair. Only if you like cookies. Years passed. The bakery thrived. Emily's hair grayed, but her eyes stayed bright. Jake's laugh lines deepened. Lily grew into a teenager, her glow is softer gold, a blend of earth and stars. One night, Emily found a Zentran ship orbiting Earth. She smiled. Let them watch. The bell above Stardust Sweets jingled as customers flooded in, drawn by the smell of cinnamon and starlight. Emily wiped the counter, her blue eyes crinkling as Lily, now a teenager, served a glowing chocolate chip cookie to a wide-eyed child. Careful, Lily warned. They're addictive. Jake emerged from the kitchen, flower in his hair. We're out of snickerdoodles again, he said, grinning. Town's obsessed. Emily laughed. Good thing your apprentice inherited my tech. She nodded at Lily, who was fixing the Zentran oven with a screwdriver. The girl's hands glowed faintly, a mix of earth and alien. just like her. Years had softened Emily's edges, but her smile stayed bright. Customers often asked about her eyes. "Contacts," Jake joked. Emily just winked. At dusk, they closed the cafe. Lily sprawled on the floor, doing homework. "Why don't the Zintrans ever land?" she asked. Emily glanced at the sky. "They're curious, but they don't understand happiness." "Do you miss them?" "No," Emily said, squeezing Jake's hand. "This is home." That night, a Zintran ship hovered above Pine Hollow. Inside, Vera watched holograms of the bakery. Laughter, glowing cookies, Lily's smile. "She's happier than any Zintran," a scientist noted. Vera frowned. "Emotions are inefficient." "But she thrives." Vera said nothing. The ship stayed hidden, observing. Back on Earth, Emily stood under the stars, Jake's arm around her. "Think they'll ever join us?" he asked. "Someday," she said. "But they need to learn what we have." "Like what?" "Cookies, chaos, love." Jake chuckled. "Good thing we've got plenty." Emily kissed him, her glow dimming to a warm, human light. Above, the Zintran ship lingered, a silent promise, not of invasion, but of hope.